It's a problem that's hidden in plain sight. On the street corners in Abilene, children are begging for money. But the money doesn't go to the children, it goes to the adults. They are hidden from view. You don't recognize them in the back of kitchens, shops, gas stations, or in the hospitality. They are tucked away in fields. They don't come out and ask for help. These children are victims of human trafficking. They are brothers and sisters, sons and daughters to someone, family members like yours and mine. Since this is a big issue in the United States and globally, I've done my research over it. And I've been over 10 different websites to understand the problem at hand. So today, I'm going to inform you about human trafficking. First, I will go over the history of human trafficking. Second, I will tell you about modern day human trafficking. And finally, I will tell you about the emotional and physical problems that come along with human trafficking. So let's get started. First, I'm going to tell you about the history of human trafficking. So what is human trafficking? Human trafficking is when someone is taken and forced to have sex for money and to hand it over to someone else or forced to work for someone else. Human trafficking has been around for thousands of years. When we open our history books, we can see a couple of examples, and one of the major ones is ancient Greece. Homer wrote about how the Greek warriors would go into the towns and take the women into being sex slaves or servants. Some may think that it only applies to the women, but that would be wrong. Just because Homer stated that it only happened to women does not mean that some men didn't fall into this category. But what we do know is that homeless was commonly caught into slavery, and if they were of use, they were sold. Even if you weren't homeless or your town was safe from invasions, if your family was poor, you could be sold into slavery to help pay off the debts. Okay, so another major human trafficking type deal thing that I noticed in history was the African slave trade, and it was the earliest form of global human trafficking. But not too long after that, white slavery came into life. White slavery is when white women and girls are forced against their will for prostitution. Okay, so now that I've told you about human trafficking in the past, now I'm going to tell you about the modern day human trafficking. Human trafficking is still a growing problem today. Two of the main types of trafficking is sex and labor trafficking. So let's begin with sex trafficking. Since 2007, the National Human Trafficking Resource Center hotline had received reports of over 14,000 sex trafficking cases inside the United States. Globally, the International Labor Organization estimated that there are 4.5 million people trapped in labor trafficking. And trapped in force and sex acts. Moving on to labor trafficking. The United States Department of Labor has identified over 100 goods from over 70 different countries made by forced and child labor. Also, in a study from San Diego State University, around 30% of Spanish-speaking migrant workers interviewed in the San Diego County had experienced labor trafficking. Now that I've told you about the history of human trafficking and human trafficking in modern times, I'm going to inform you about the emotional and physical problems involved with human trafficking. Human trafficking can cause both emotional and physical problems. And when we look at just the emotional problems, over 70% of women reported 10 or more mental health issues associated with depression and anxiety within the first 14 days. Around 50% of the women reported having significant symptoms of suggestion of PTSD. However, despite the decrease of percent over the future interviews that they had, women remain at risk of gaining some of those emotional problems again and even triggering some of the past PTSDs that they had faced when facing stressful life events. Now, the physical problems are no better. Between the first day, and the 14th day, around 50% of the women were experiencing 12 or more physical health symptoms that caused them pain or discomfort. Based on the physical health symptoms reported, Women clearly required medical attention that they required medical attention that not only treated their urgent medical complications such as infections and injuries and pain or even unwanted pregnancies. They also had to rapidly learn how to deal with their basic needs, such as their safety and their rest and their nutrition. So, when we look back at the facts, we can see that human trafficking is affecting a lot of people. Today, I have informed you about the human trafficking. We have talked about the history of human trafficking, modern day human trafficking, and the emotional and physical problems of human trafficking. Hopefully, by increasing the public's intelligence on human trafficking, we can not only stop the country's trafficking, but we can stop the world's. If you want to learn more information about human trafficking, here are a couple of the websites that I used. It was www.humantrafficking.org. I used, what's that paper? Well, history.com. You can learn about the history of human trafficking, and orgg.com was another good website. Thank you for viewing, and I hope we all learned a lot about human trafficking.